Hey guys, how's it going? It's Marketing Johnson here again.
Now today, I'm going to go through the story of how I saved $100,000 by the age of 20 years old for a house deposit. Now guys, I wish I had a magic system to do this where you could follow a couple of easy steps and the $100,000 would just appear in your account. It's not that easy. I wish I could even take credit for me saving for this $100,000, but I really can't. This is more a video that I think most parents should watch, because this $100,000 of savings that I made was a direct result of my parents and the system that they put in place to force me to save. So I'm going to go through exactly what they did and the results. Now guys, what this system taught me that my parents showed me was basically, you really can live off a lot less than you think, especially if you're in your 20s or your teens and you're still living with your parents. You can live off the bare minimum and you can generate value pretty much out of thin air, okay? So now hear me out and I'm going to show you exactly my situation and you'll understand. Now, after I left school, I got an apprenticeship as a carpenter slash cabinet maker. Okay, that's what I was doing. And I started off on like $8 an hour. I was making $350 a week. This is when I started saving. It took me 4 years to save the $100,000. And I've got to give my parents a lot of credit here, because this is the option that they gave me once I started working. Now don't quote me on exact numbers here, because this was a few years ago, but my parents basically gave me two options. As most parents do when you start working full time, they ask for rent. They say, okay, you're working full time now, time to start paying rent, time to pay your fair share. Okay, my parents said, okay Mark, you're going to start paying rent now, but we're going to give you a second option. You can either pay us $150 rent out of your wage, which is about $350 a week, or you can pay us $250 a week in rent, and we will give all that back to you at the end of your apprenticeship, so after the 4 years. So you can either pay $150 and that's rent that they will use and they will take and you don't ever see it again, or you can pay $250 and they will give the entire lot back after the 4 years. Now this sounds great. $100 a week to live off is not very much. So I am committing $250 a week to this and only leaving myself with $100. So it's not great, especially when you hang out with friends and, save for cars and fuel and maintenance on your car and all that sort of thing. So it's not a whole lot, but they made it sound even more juicy by saying, well, whatever you put in above the $250, we will match. It didn't work out to be a whole lot. But again, as a teenager, or you want to be hanging out with your friends, you want to be spending money, not so much saving money. So this really forced me to save. Now throughout my apprenticeship, it was a 4-year apprenticeship, okay? And each year you get a pay rise as an apprentice. So I maybe went from $350 to like $500, but then they would ask, instead of putting $250 away each week, we want $350. So I was basically getting the same amount of money left over at the end of the week as when I was a first year. But now I'm saving more money. So they kept me cash poor. And so eventually when I was like a 4th year apprentice, I don't know, I was earning like $800 a week. I can't exactly remember, maybe with a bit of overtime. But then I was having to put away like $600 a week into this savings account. It was either that or move out. That was the option. Now as I got older and started to, have more things like cars and more responsibilities, more, things that I can spend money on. My friends were spending more money. It started to get really, really tight. My car was actually breaking down. It was a 4-wheel drive and it had a lot of problems and I needed to get them fixed. Now this is where the magic happened, because my parents, I went to them and I said, look, my car's this, that, it's stuffed, like I have to get to work. I want the money that I've been saving for out of this house deposit that you guys have kept. I want the money back. I want to spend it on my car. I want to fix my car. I need some money back. And they held firm. They said, no damn way you ain't getting 1 cent of that money. And I said, look, I want to go with option 1. You can take out all the $150 that you would have had a week in rent and leave me with the rest, and I'll use that money for my car. Because it's so hard when you have these moments of weakness when you're trying to save and you've got a car problem or whatever. It's so hard to not, if you've got a big lump sum of money saved up in an account that you have access to, it's very hard not to just take from that and use it to fix whatever or fix your problem. But they held firm. They would not let me touch it. They said, no, it's not an option. So that forced me, now this is where the magic happened, that forced me to find a way that didn't involve money to fix my car. So I started looking at YouTube videos and I learned how to fix it, and then I ended up going to the wrecking yard and getting some tools and parts and everything. And my dad was already a mechanic. Well, he wasn't a mechanic, but he serviced his own car, so he had some tools, and I ended up saving about $1,400 by just going and getting some parts. It was two front axles and the wheel bearings on either side that had to be replaced. It was going to cost like $1,500 or something, and I ended up doing it for like $220. Now you're probably asking, what on earth does this learning to, work on cars have to do with saving money? How's that going to help you? Well, this is how it works, okay? When you're trying to save money, you have this money sitting there, and it's very tempting to dip into that because money solves problems. You need to be able to solve the problems without the money. Now, to do this and start really stretching your brain to work out how to solve problems without money, you kind of need to be pushed up against a wall. So if you had the money sitting there, I mean, in my situation, if I actually had access to the money, there's no way that I would have gone through what I did to fix my car and all that stuff. I would have just gotten the money and fixed it that way, So you've really got to be backed into a corner for this. It's very hard to have the discipline to not touch that money. So if you're still living with your parents, you're a teenager or in early 20s, whatever, I would show them this video and I would ask for the same arrangement that I had. And most of the time, believe it or not, your parents love you and they want the best for you, and they're probably going to do the same. They're probably happy to do the same thing for you. Now, if they're not willing to do the exact same thing, okay, you can work out how much you want to save to get to your goal, how long it's going to take, like a reasonable goal, and then instead of putting that money in your own account, honestly, the best way to do it would be to give it to your parents or a friend or a close, somewhere you can trust that you don't have immediate access to it, and you, under the condition that however long it takes you to get to your goal, that's when you get the money back, not beforehand, because it's very easy, if you know you have cash sitting there, to just go and use it to fix or whatever you need. It's very easy. There's plenty of times where I've had moments of weakness where I just would have gone straight into that money that I had sitting there. Now, as much as you think it might suck trying to save up and you're not going to have any fun while you're doing it because all your money's going into saving, something really exciting happens when you're on the no cash diet. You start developing skills to get what you want without paying for it. Not in like a criminal way, but you end up being able to create value and money out of thin air, if you know what I mean, or be able to create value and get the things that you want without spending money. Let me explain. Now, about halfway through my apprenticeship, I had this crappy four-wheel drive, and it was great, because of my newfound mechanical knowledge. I'd worked on it and it got looking really good, and I could have sold it for a decent bit more than what I actually paid for it to begin with. But I really wanted a 105 series Land Cruiser. That was like my dream car at the time. Really nice. I don't know if you've seen them, these Land Cruisers. They're really cool. 105 series. It was going to cost me about $16,000 to $20,000 for one of these cars, and I did not have that money. I had that money sitting in this account that my parents had, that I was saving for, that I was paying them each week, but I did not have the money, and there's no way they were going to give me the money for this car. So I was looking at cars and I found one completely wrecked for $8,000. Well, actually he wanted $13,000 for it still, but it was terrible condition. It was leaking oil all over the place. It had rust, and I said to him, I will give you $8,000. And believe it or not, he'd had it on there for that long. He was like, you know what? I don't care. Come over here. And so I took it. I literally had to sell my car that week. I sold my car. Someone drove down from Queensland to buy it, sold the car. I got actually $7,000 for my car at the time after I put some work into it, and then I had $1,000 saved up. I went, literally caught the bus, bought this car for $8,000, drove it home, leaking oil. I had to bring oil to top it up as I was driving. This thing was absolutely a disaster. And I spent the next few months fixing it up. I cut the rust out, did some dodgy fiberglassing, just learnt as I went. And all of a sudden, I had my dream car. I basically swapped it for my previous car. I had turned a $7,000 car into now a $16,000 to $20,000 car. Now, if I had access to the money, of course I would have just gone out and bought this car. But from not being able to have access to the money, I have found a way to get it without having to buy it, like out having to get access to the money. I found a different way of getting it, and this actually opened my eyes to now, wait a second, there's a lot of undervalued cars out there that you can flip. So a few weeks later, me and my friend actually went halves in another car. We put $1,000 each in each. It was a $2,000 car. It was a Toyota 4Runner. I remember this, and we fixed it up. We did a bit of work to it, probably spent 1 or 2 days on it, and we sold it a few weeks later for $4,000. So we doubled our money on it. And this all stems from me not having access to that money originally, and now being able to create value out of nothing. So not only when you're really trying hard to save up and saving for a house, whatever, and you're on the no cash diet, not only are you saving for that house and putting an immense amount of money away for it, doing excellent things for that, you are building skills to create value and get the things that you want without using money. Now let's look back for a second, okay? If my parents did not implement this system to begin with, what would have happened? I probably would not have had a house deposit by 20 years old, that's for sure. I would not have learnt to work on cars because I would have just paid a mechanic to do it. I would not have learnt to flip cars or create value and money out of thin air because I would have just paid for the cars in the first place. I wouldn't have needed to learn any of that stuff. So if you're still living with your parents, great, maybe you can show them this video and maybe they can do the same thing with you. If not, if you're moved out by yourself in your 30s, whatever, if you're renting a place, you can still do this. You just have to back yourself into the corner. You have to back yourself into the corner and force yourself to live on less. And you're thinking, oh, I don't want to sacrifice the place I'm living on. I don't want to have to move into some, shared friggin' room and just, you don't have to do that. All you need to do is work out how much money you want to save up over the next 3 years. All right, so let's work it out. Say you want to save up $50,000 over the next 3 years, okay? So we're going to go 50,000 divided by 3. So $16,000 a year. 16,000 divided by 52 weeks in a year. You need to save $320 a week. Say you earn $700 a week. Well, I reckon you could save more than $320 a week. So say 50,000 divided by 2, which is 25,000 divided by 52 weeks in a year, $480 a week. So if you're earning $700 a week, $480 is pretty easy, and you get $220 to live off. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but I pay $350 a week in rent for my apartment. Well, this is where the part you need to start generating value from thin air comes in, okay? Okay, you pay $350 a week in rent and you don't want to move out and, go to some crappy place. How can we reduce your rent? Maybe you can move in some of your friends into the other rooms, lease those rooms out to them. Maybe you can put one of the rooms on Airbnb. The average private room on Airbnb makes about $15,000 a year, which is your entire rent. Depending on where you live, that's your entire rent. So if you just put a room on Airbnb, maybe you get someone staying there 3 times a week, you put that on Airbnb, there's your rent paid for. Now you've got that $220 a week to live off completely for groceries, food and everything. That's the type of mindset you need to have, and you just need to find a nice family member or someone you trust that you can put that $480 that you're saving, you can give that to them, or you can put that somewhere safe so that you can't access it for the 2 years until you have the $50,000. Because with that lump sum of money just sitting there, it's way too easy to start looking at really nice cars that you want. Well, you can look at those nice cars, but you need to know that you can't use that money for the cars. You need to work out a different way of getting that car, like what I did in the previous example. And guys, I really hope that this example and story that I've told you today about my situation and what my parents did to get me saving, I hope that helped you out, and I hope you can take some value from that and maybe apply it to your own situation, because saving is great for when you want to buy things like a house, and that's when the wealth really gets generated. Like if my parents didn't implement that in the beginning, then I probably would not have this house today. As you guys know, I have this beautiful waterfront house that I'm living in. And because of the skills that I took from the no cash diet, Not only am I living in this waterfront house, I'm living in this waterfront house completely for free. It actually pays me to live here, only because of the skills I learned on the no cash diet, which originated from me saving the money and the system my parents put in place. So if you guys would like to know how I am living in this place for free, then check out this video here. It's on my YouTube channel. If there's other videos out there you want to check out on my YouTube channel, feel free. Thanks for watching. Share this with your friends that don't know how to save, and see you in the next one.